Okay, y'all. Calling to order, 9 o'clock. Let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Are there any changes or additions, corrections to the minutes as emailed? Hearing none, they stand as emailed. Jen, can we have a call for quorum?
All right. Have Kitty. Have Val. So we don't have Dottie, we have Martha. We have Tracy. We don't have Kathy today. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have Val, 5. Okay, I think we are still short of a quorum. Do you agree?
So we're one short of a quorum. Therefore, we're kind of stuck. We can't vote to adopt the agenda. So I'm going to kind of wing it here. Try to keep us legal within the bounds. So could we informally agree to move unfinished business to the front of the agenda so that David could get back to work? Okay, everybody. Okay.
Okay, now
Great.
wait a minute. We have 6.
Oh,
Our quorum is half of our membership plus 1. Half of our membership is 5.5. Is 6 people plus 1? I mean, maybe we could agree that 6.
so what's our stats?
Well, if 5.5 plus 1 means 6.5, we'd have to have 7. What we have is 6. If 5.5 plus 1 means 6, we've just made it. Jim is not a voting member. No.
I don't.
Well, no. Yeah. Okay, we got a quorum.
All right, let's start this over.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Second. Bill Tucker. Treasurer's report.
All right. We do not yet have a report for, we don't yet, am I on? Okay, we don't yet have the town report for July. As of June, we were not in arrears on anything. We've had a lot of activity, mostly for Flat Creek Crossing. Flat Creek Crossing at this point is about $10,000 to the good from both donations and from funds raised from the card and the note sales. We're not out of money, and I'll have a better report for you next time. Is that sufficient for now?
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, what you got is all you got. Okay. Any public comments from our public back there? Good morning. All right. Last spring, so to bring you all up to date, last spring, Jim Williamson raised some questions and offered some solutions to the traffic coming into Montreat for the purpose of using our trails and resulting parking problems at our trailheads. So as a result of Jim's questions, we met with David Arrett, Chief of Montreat Police, Jason Nance, Tanner Pickett, and Martha Todd Sloan of MRA. to discuss those issues as well as the management of the foot traffic on the trails caused by the increased traffic. It was agreed that Landcare would research grants to hire a consultant to advise on management of the trails, which Montreat students did at direction of Dottie. So these next two reports are going to bring us up to date on those topics. David, you're up. Come to the front, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for coming.
You're very welcome. In regards, I guess, picking up from our meeting last year, looking at grants, I mentioned at the time that the town was actually looking at undertaking a grant. Kayla and Christina was looking into that. Unfortunately, that didn't materialize. So I'm not sure whatever grants that y'all have pursued, what they're showing. Since then, this topic still comes up in a discussion between mostly Tanner and myself when we discuss what's going on at our trailheads. I'm sure you all have seen the moves that were undertaken for Lookout Trailhead as far as more signage being put up there, the overflow parking. That's actually worked out very well for us, simply because while we were taking away parking, we also opened up some new stuff. So that's generally worked out pretty well. Graybeard Trailhead, unfortunately, that's just not an option. There is really nowhere to develop any additional parking on that roadside. Moreover than that, these trails just seem to be becoming more and more popular with every passing year. With social media and all that sort of stuff, I'm afraid there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. We can certainly address maybe looking at putting it to town council for additional signage for roadside parking up through there to try to alleviate some of that congestion. But again, there's no place to develop to put that additional parking, so it's literally just taking stuff away. And that's a tough thing to enforce as well, because you don't have moderators, people that are not tied to here. So a lot of times the tickets that we would put out are really not worth the paper they're written on, since there's no follow-up to that, there's no teeth to it. And I'm generally not a fan of towing at the trailheads. I don't want to see that where you've got, at the end of the day, 3 generations of the family coming down, they're absolutely gassed, the rain's getting ready to start, and they're sitting there scratching their heads wondering where their car's at. And then they happen to notice the sign they parked in front of. That's
Jimmy, have any questions? Speaking to the mic.
I'm thinking. I found that's a good thing to do before you say anything. I don't have any brilliant ideas. I'm disappointed that no action is being taken on Graybeard. There is a sign halfway up Graybeard by the campsite road there. It says, turn around and go back to park. I don't know if that is accomplishing anything.
not particularly. We've experimented with that, putting it right at the beginning of Graybeard, right there at Assembly. Simply because at least that offers more available parking right there, maybe around the barn or there at Assembly or something like that. Most signs, I don't know if people are, well, I can take a guess, whether they're deliberately ignoring them or just oblivious to it. But no, that's having those signs out there that say the trailhead parking is full, start looking for something now, doesn't really seem to be terribly effective.
So Jim brought up in the meeting something about passes being issued from the end or something to help with the traffic stuff, that people just can't come rolling in here free. Am I did I say that right, Jim?
Well, yeah, we tossed around a lot of ideas, but that was one that promise, I thought. You know, when you come in through the gate, if you're going hiking, you stop and get a pass.
That's certainly a viable option, and that would have to be really solely on the MRA since that's their property. Moreover than that, it would literally require personnel for some sort of staffing on something like that. And then you get into the territory of, you know, would a fee be incurred, you know, and maybe package that in a way that this is for trail maintenance, you know, what have you, something like that. Now, obviously, I don't think they'd probably make an exorbitant amount. It would be $1, $3, whatever the case may be. But really, that comes back down to, again, having the staffing for that and the enforcement. How tough is that enforcement going to be?
Well, yeah, certainly there would be some issues that needed to be dealt with, but, you know, there are often solutions to problems.
Right. Well, again, that would rest solely on the MRA, should they decide to do that.
I mean, it seems like a very complicated issue without simple solutions. And I think yeah, David's right. It's not in the town, the police's jurisdiction to, you know, deal with anything probably beyond the parking aspect of it. I think when it comes to the trail aspect of it, it's just the traffic on the trails and the erosion of the trails. Some of the just common courtesy things that you see if you're a regular hiker, you see all the, you know, the doggy bags that are just left, trash, etc. Seems to be a problem that just requires more, you know, more thought and brainstorming about solutions. But yeah, I agree with, you know, with apps like All Trails directing people to all the great hikes in Montreat, and even the Sierra Club, you know, posting about hiking in Montreat. You see when you're out hiking, I would say the majority of the people that you encounter are not Montreaters. And that's certainly great from an altruistic standpoint. We like to see other people enjoying the beauty we have here, but see people from Chicago and Portland and all over. So I think is there, you know, the question is, do we need to do something to try to reduce some of the traffic just because of the erosion issue? And secondly, Montreat can also always use money, additional funds to support maintenance and other projects. Is there a way to, you know, create some revenue stream to offset some of the costs at a minimum? So it sounds like that topic requires a lot more thought and discussion.
I was at REI not long ago, you know, the
What's-
outdoor.
Okay. I don't know what that was.
Yeah. You know, the outdoor company in Asheville, they sell backpacks and bicycles and stuff. They had a blackboard right by the entrance into the store. Said our favorite hiking trails, written by hand. You know, first one there was Lookout Trail in Montreat.
Again, that's the popularity of these trails, especially, you know, over the past few years, but especially in spring and summer of 2020 during COVID. That's just the popularity just absolutely exploded. Excuse me. And again, I don't know if there's interest in trying to curtail that, but even if there were, I don't know how we go about doing that. It's the convenience of it, I think, even though, you know, a lot of folks, when they're coming in from Asheville, they literally have to drive by at least one entrance to the parkway. They can jump on there, but I think maybe they're just looking at it. It's just so you can just expedite a quick hike, literally zipping down 40, driving up through here. Certainly knows from what I've seen, everybody wants to get the best parking spot they can to get to the trail.
Okay, David, you said something about staff. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's MRA staffs the gatehouse in the summer, right?
It's volunteers.
They're volunteers. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're volunteers.
volunteers.
So why couldn't those volunteers sit on the outside of the village and stop cars and say, okay, if you're coming hiking, the pass is going to be X dollars. That would help MRA with their trails. But I understand it's a public road, so you can't stop people, but you can certainly have a little pass. It costs $3, can't you?
Yeah, but I think the logistics of doing that at the gate is Probably undoable, just simply because not only the amount of traffic we've got coming in, but to stop every vehicle and inquire as to their intentions of coming in. I don't know if that's a good look necessarily for the town. If you were to have folks either through staff or volunteers or whatever that scenario would be, I think it's probably a lot more feasible to literally have them at the trailheads, somewhere around those kiosks there at Graybeard, or Lookout Rainbow. I don't know that, trails like Big Piney is necessarily enough to draw the MRA would want to have staff there or request volunteers there or anything like that. But having that at the endpoints where the users are going, I think is certainly better than bottlenecking all incoming traffic to the town. Like I said,
Well, is that doable? Can you manage that? Who could manage that?
that would have to be MRA, since that is
Their
that's
trails.
private property. Especially if they wanted to incur a fee on that, they need to have some sort of appropriate agent there acting on behalf of the MRA. Maybe have letting folks know why this change was put into place. Maybe just sort of a PR courtesy kind of thing. But that certainly would not fall under
The town.
the town.
Yeah, it's a public road, so you can't.
Well, again, I think we're taking the roads out of that. If MRA chose to follow through something like that, it would literally be at the parking lots. Exactly. Theoretically unaffected traffic. But you would also get into that, any of the few folks that have a residence at on Upward Way, or maybe even at the end of Graybeard. People stopping and hey, what are your intentions? I'm trying to go home, get out of my way.
Could you, no, it's not feasible, I suppose, to give residents a little sticker. I think you have more residents coming through than hikers, maybe. I don't know.
As far as traffic and getting past
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, in theory, and you probably wouldn't have a huge volume of people rotating through that position, so they would probably realize, oh, that's Mr. Burns coming to check on the caboose, or whatever.
Well, I agree with Bill that we need some more discussion on this, and Jim. Okay, but David, thank you so much. Do you have anything else to add?
Not really. Like I said, it's always an ongoing discussion of, what we're seeing there. What we're seeing there, and have we had any ideas? I ultimately think, again, we're not going to expand parking at Graybeard because you just
You can't.
simply cannot do that. Trying to shift that, because we've talked about it, putting parking at the far end of the campground, that's fairly close in through there, but that's unwarranted traffic coming through folks that are trying to have a serene camping trip,
Mhm.
sort of thing there. So we're always waiting for the light bulb to go off. We've just not gotten anything workable at this point.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope we didn't take up too much of your time.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dave. Okay, Martha Todd, MRA, have you got any?
I have a little bit of an update. And I appreciated that conversation because all of that is helpful input. The MRA is working with a consulting firm in Asheville to address all of these things you all have been talking about, most specifically trail maintenance, because all of our trails need maintenance work done, but also how they might be able to advise us about the things like parking and do we permit to hike? Do we permit to park? What does that look like? Just observationally, as someone who coordinates volunteers for the conference center, in my experience, they do not like being in policing positions. So I don't see it being real feasible to use volunteers at trailheads to say, stop and pay, or show me your permit. There may be some people who are willing to do that, but in general, no. And in fact, the folks at the gatehouse are there because they love to welcome. right? So I don't, to David's point, that doesn't seem like a good look for the town to stop it, literally everybody coming through the gate and saying, what is your reason for being here? Staffing is always an issue. Off the top of my head, I can think of 6 trailheads. And if we're gonna station people at the trailheads checking that, that's 6 bodies you have to have on any given day. But back to working with a consultant, we did apply for one of the grants that was found that could apply to us. Most of the grants that the student who was researching found had to do with things like new trails or drawing underserved individuals out to trails, or more. Not much of it was pure trail maintenance. There was one, we applied for it. We asked for $10,000. We got 5. It's going to cost 25 to work with this consultant, $25,000. So we're hopeful that we can find $20,000 under a bush somewhere so that we can continue this work. But the first thing that they said is you have got to put out some trail counters, which the 1st of July, Jason did. He put them out at, I think you could say 4 trailheads, and how you may know as a volunteer there. So if I'm missing any information, please jump in. Hal volunteers at our nature center, but at both ends of Piney, so Harmony and Sewanee, at Lookout and at Graybeard, and on our hiking average since putting those out in early July is 1,000 people a day.
Wow.
Just on those spots. Now, granted, we're in the summer and we have youth here and we have conference goers here and clubs are in session. So lots of parents of clubbies hiking while they're at clubs. I imagine during leaf season, it could be similar, particularly kind of like the Thursday to Sunday traffic. I don't know that during the week, although then we'll have college students here and they use the trails a lot. I think the cross country team maybe does some trail running there, and the environmental department uses it. So we'll continue counting at the trails. And like I said, that's only those 4 trails, and you never know who like maybe came up off another trail and came down that trail, right? So 1,000 people a day just for this past month. So that's where it stands with the MRA. We're hoping that again that we can get the money to get the full consultation with this group, and things like parking and a lot of the stuff we discussed here are also part of it. But David mentioned the challenges there. We just don't have space to add parking. And once the cars start parking along the road, then that's not an MRA, that is a town thing. So it's tricky, like lots of things in Montreat are.
Martha, who are these consultants?
It's a group called Equinox in Asheville, Equinox Environmental, and they do a lot of environmental consulting, but this is one thing that they do. So we're hoping to, like I said, seal the contract with them, but we are still way short of funds to do the work.
Have there been any efforts to raise funds? Any publicity about the need for doing it?
They're not publicity, but we are looking at sources for where that funding might come.
Say that again, Martha.
We are looking at sources for where that funding might come. We haven't done any public fundraising as of yet. We may have to get to that point, but we are looking at other ways to fund that.
Well, I know the Flat Creek Crossing group just recently sent out a mailing asking for contributions, explaining about the project, what the need for it is, telling people where to send their contributions. It seems to me that if you want the money, something like that has got to happen.
It's a good suggestion.
Yeah. and-
Martha, what about putting a post at the end of each trail with a QR code to say, help us maintain the trails?
Glad you brought that up. We started doing that and we are getting some funding through that. We've had a few donations come in and they are always specifically for trail maintenance, which could this would be a part of, certainly this consultant. So yeah, we are doing that, increasing that sort of signage at our trails, at our trailheads to get donations from folks.
I've got another, maybe a silly question, but the counters are gonna count people twice.
We
Y'all took
factored that in. Yeah.
Overwhelming at that.
Yeah. Yeah, but he halved every day, he halves the number at that trailhead, assuming people are up and down. Like I said, you may have somebody who goes up Lookout and comes down a different trail, right? Hikes along the ridge and comes down. So, but on average, 1,000 people a day.
Martha, if you, would MRA consider anything like a large fundraiser? You squirming.
Well, I mean, perhaps. That has not been discussed yet.
I'm sure one of your concerns might be drawing away donations from, the overall annual capital campaign that MRA does, which you wouldn't want to do, but I wonder if MRA has the ability just to do just kind of a grassroots GoFundMe campaign specifically to focus on possible solutions for, the trail issue, given the number of people who seem to be talking about the topic within Montreat. You would think that you'd at least be able to raise, a few $1,000s if you did something like that.
And that's been discussed too. But you're exactly right. There's a point at which you worry about cannibalizing your operating fund fundraising if you're doing a lot of little spot on fundraisers all around. So that always has to be factored in to those conversations.
Yeah. Or even an outreach to put something, in the Black Mountain News, in the Asheville paper, just saying, Montreat needs funds for trail maintenance, et cetera, and see what kind of contributions you might get from the broader community of folks who are heavily using the trails.
Yeah. And I do think there might be potentials through, Jim mentioned REI. I was in a different outdoor outfitter and exact same thing. Lookout was the top trail on there. So, those are options that could be available to us as well.
Martha, how would we move ahead from a discussion of possibilities into some sort of an action plan?
Well, there are things being done right now. And I think we wait to see what develops from those possibilities first, and then look at developing an action plan that maybe incorporates some of what's been suggested here.
Is it possible for this group to get a sort of a status report? What's happening along that line?
Like, you mean a written report beyond what I've reported this
No, I'm
morning?
from now on in the future. Excuse me.
Oh, I think that'll be a part of this meeting moving forward, either Jason, and the reason Jason's not here is this is the last week summer staff is here. And so he's overseeing 5 rangers, which by the way, is our trail maintenance crew out of 10 weeks of every year, 5 collegians. And they do a great job, but there's a lot more work out there than they can do in 10 weeks. But yeah, my understanding is this kind of an update will be an ongoing part of this meeting. We also continue to look for grant possibilities. There's a lot of money out there for recreation departments that would apply to this, but we are not a recreation department, not like the state. We are the MRA is the de facto recreation department for the town of Montreat, but because we are not a recreation department for a municipality, those funds I do not think are available to us. I'm trying to get a definite answer about that, but I don't think they would be available to us because we are not tied to a municipality.
Could you form one?
That was my question. My next question.
Form a recreation
Get
department to
Well, we would still be tied to a not-for-profit.
Yeah. But I don't know if
Oh.
the not-for-profit obviously owns the properties, but if they could outsource trail maintenance, for example, to a rec department along with, I'm not sure who maintains like the playground and tennis courts and all that stuff, but there, you could have a.
Mhm. I mean, all of that is MRA owned. So
Right.
yeah, that's a good question. And I don't, I mean, that's not been discussed in our circles. As I've looked at because we have a summer staffer in our office too, who I asked to look even further into grants. And that's when because we needed one specific to trail maintenance. And pretty much all of those, like I said, are through rec departments. I placed a phone call to try to find out, because we are a really different animal.
Right.
If those funds would be available to us, and I've not heard back from the person I called, so I do not know the answer to that yet. I don't. That's a bigger conversation. Would we outsource that to an existing recreation department? For example, would Buncombe County Parks and Rec want to take this on? I don't know if Buncombe County would want it, frankly. And that's not my decision to make. And I don't know that I'm not suggesting the MRA wants to do that. So yeah, I don't know. These are all good questions that I don't have an answer to.
I think that requires further investigation.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
What do you think, Martha? You think
It's not for me to decide whether
I know, but
that happens.
do you think that would be a good idea to bring up outsourcing?
Outsourcing it. I think a better idea is for us to continue to pursue our current avenues of funding for it and see where that leads us.
I just feel like that there are more ways to get this money than going through the grants. I feel
It's
like
gonna have to
I
be.
feel like there are more ways out there to get it
And we are pursuing some ways that aren't grant
that
funded,
are not grants.
that are not grants. Yes.
Could you tell us?
No, I'm not
No?
able to discuss that right
Okay.
now,
All right.
but we are looking at other sources of funding.
Martha, I know you all have full-time jobs and a lot of us here don't anymore. If you all, wanted to form any kind of a subcommittee or bring in people from the community who are also interested in this topic, and we're looking for some additional people to provide some of the legwork. I mean, I would certainly be willing and interested in doing that, and I'm sure that there are other people as well. But that's, I'm in active contact with Tanner and Richard on wilderness committee topics, and if you wanted additional kind of support for your initiatives, I'd be happy to volunteer.
That'd be great. The Wilderness Committee that Tanner oversees would be a good place for you to
Yeah.
plug in. We do have, that's made up of a lot of community members as well as Tanner and Jason and myself being on that committee. So I appreciate that. That'd be a great place for you to plug in and to address this very thing, everything about our trails. That's what that committee is doing.
Bill, will you follow up on that?
Yes.
Jean?
One thing which is tangential at this point, but it's a little bit of history that may turn out to be relevant. The town of Montreat once upon a time had parks and rec. But since the town of Montreat doesn't really own any parks for recreation, except the possibility of the development of Flat Creek Crossing, that was folded into Landcare. So when Landcare applied for a grant for Flat Creek Crossing, it was under the auspices of the town. So I don't know whether that connection is something that would serve in the future, but that is the history.
I did not know that history. Thank you.
Such as I understand it. I wasn't here then, but
Well, that's a nice thing to put in the back of your head. That has that's been set, that precedent has been set. Correct?
well, the precedent has been set for Landcare because Landcare is listed officially on the town website and so forth as an advisory committee to the town. And Landcare was constructed as a sharing of information and sharing of efforts vehicle for the various entities that share the valley. So it's, it would take some work to investigate that a little further, but it could be that there is a possible route there.
Sound like a precedent to me. You vote
Just one quick thought, just so it doesn't get
Hal?
lost. And nothing to do with Monterey Preds, but in addition to the county parks and recs, there is a county tourist development council, and I'm not sure what they call it. Sorry? Okay. So anyway, the Tourist Development Council is in the business of putting out money from bed taxes throughout the county. And since we support a lot of the county and tourist development, I would think we can make a pitch for that they might be a source of some funds too, because they're a little bit freer about who they give money to, type of organization they fund, as long as it's doing some good work in the tourist area.
Good to know. Thank you.
And I'm sure that your consultant will, look into them.
Imagine they will. Yep. Thank you. Ed.
So Martha, you would suggest that we go through or work with Jason on the wilderness committee that's already set? Or should we think about forming a committee of our own involving MRA to help with this funding question?
I think start with the wilderness committee that exists at the
Okay.
MRA and then
Okay.
see what seems to make sense from there.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments on this from the board? Kitty, Tracy. All right, moving on then. Martha, thank you so much. I know this
Welcome.
is it's a tough question, and surely working together we can find an answer for this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think
Because
so too.
it's got to be done. It's got to be done. Okay, Town of Monterey. Now, Kathy has sent in a report. Kitty, you were at the meeting. So if you have anything to add to this, if you would do this. Okay, Jim.
Okay. Kathy sent this ahead. Below are the main points of interest from the July 13th, 2023 Montreat Town Council meeting. The council held a public hearing on the comprehensive plan update, Montreat Tomorrow. Comments included requests to add a section addressing revenue, stress historic preservation, and maintain current special use permit criteria. Another public hearing will be held at the August 10th Town Council meeting. The council will vote on the plan following that public hearing. The council approved a body camera policy for the Montreat Police Department. Mayor Pro Tem Mason Blake discussed recent challenges with bears getting into trash and potentially posing threats to people. He emphasized the need to enforce town solid waste rules and suggested that the council might consider adding a penalty of charging $250 per hour if town personnel have to clean up a homeowner's bear-strewn trash. There was a hearty discussion regarding bear issues this season and homeowners, visitors' responsibilities to dissuade bears from coming close to homes. The council discussed parking problems, particularly on Texas Road near the tennis courts. No parking signs have been installed, and that seems to have improved the situation. There was a suggestion that perhaps the town's $5 fine for parking violations should be increased. That's the end of the report. Anything more?
We've had some complaints from the pickleball players about the no parking signs on the tennis court. So we've come to a compromise. When this week is over, David is going to take down 5 of those signs to allow parking there, with the agreement that next year when clubs start back up, the signs go back up. So it's hard to keep everybody happy, homeowners
Well, you
and
can't please.
pickleball players.
What's the saying? You can't please everybody all the time. Okay.
that was a good report. I think that was thorough.
Any more about bears?
Um, just that so many, they're getting better at getting into bear boxes. And I think we need to do something to encourage people to get a better bear box. They're tearing open even boxes that were made for bears. They're still just getting on the corner and pulling them up, pulling up the lid. So we did finally issue a fine to one person who was repeatedly having garbage out.
Any response from that?
Yes, a mad homeowner.
A what? A mad phone call? What'd you say?
I say a mad homeowner.
Well, happy bear, mad homeowner. Okay, Mark, do you have anything else to add other than,
No, and then we feel like we've had a great summer this year in Montreat. Clubs numbers were back up to a nice number. Our conference attendance was back up to a good number. Yeah, it's been a good summer.
Tracy, if you got anything to add? Mike?
I would echo Martha's remarks. It's been a really great summer and there's just been a lot of joy that I've observed. So glad everybody's having a good time.
Bears are coming into Anderson Auditorium.
I think they were around Anderson Auditorium. I did not hear anything about one actually coming into the auditorium.
I did too. And there was a mama with cubs that came in. The cubs got scared and left, but she came in.
I didn't hear all that, but I'm not involved with a lot of the youth conferences and stuff. So
Okay, all right.
maybe it was a cleaning day on Saturday and they were coming in to help clean.
They're really fast, those bears. They move through a room.
They moved through a yard. Okay, Montreat College is gone for the summer, so this will be no report. The cottages, wilderness open spaces. Mr.
So,
Tucker.
yeah, so Beth Fountain delivered a very comprehensive update on all the work that we've done over the last roughly year at the cottagers meeting just 10 days ago. Read a lengthy statement that summarized all the work that we've done and kind of where we are in our process. So I don't have any updates beyond that at this point, but I'm happy to answer any remaining questions that anybody has.
What's going on with Rocky Knob? Is that
Yeah, that was the sole focus of her lengthy report. And I've got a copy. I can forward a copy of that report, an electronic copy if people want it. But I think just to simplify things, we started off looking at just asking the question whether after 32 years, the cottagers remain the most logical and best owner of the Rocky Knob property going forward. And we outlined the three options that we decided to analyze. One was no change, status quo, the cottagers would continue to own it. The second one was to see if it made sense to transfer ownership to the Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy, since they hold and administer the conservation easement on the property. And the third was to consider a transfer of ownership to MRA. I think we met extensively with the Highlands Conservancy and ruled them out as a logical owner of the property for the simple reason that really their objectives were accomplished 30 years ago when the property was placed in conservation easement. So they've accomplished their goal. They don't have a need to own the property. In fact, owning property raises obligations for them, and they are not allowed to both own and administer a conservation easement on the same property. So they would need to go out and find another municipal or independent conservation organization to actually oversee the conservation easement. And there would be some monetary cost to them as well for affecting a deed transfer, et cetera, and going through the process. So we kind of mutually agreed that it did not make sense to consider a transfer of ownership to them, but we'll continue to work with them as the administrator of the easement. as it relates to MRA, we've had extensive discussions with Richard and Tanner. The most recently, just I guess a week or so before the cottagers meeting. And we've kind of exchanged some documents that related to kind of our liability insurance policy and addressing questions about the tax exempt status of the cottagers and the Rocky Gap property. There is no compelling desire on MRA's part to own the property there. I think we agreed that there's some real logic for considering it, given that they own 2,500 acres of Montreat wilderness that are also administered in a conservation easement with the Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. They do have the staff that undertakes informally kind of trail maintenance and other considerations like that. So I think at this point, we're down to two options. One is status quo, no change. The cottagers continue to own it. The second is that MRA is evaluating, its position, formal position on whether it makes sense for them to take it over. And I think we decided to give Richard and Tanner, the opportunity to kind of close out their busy summer and focus on just recovering from that. And then we'll probably get together with them again in kind of the September timeframe.
Thank you, Bill. Earth Ministry, Hal?
I don't have anything new from the church. We'll
Okay,
have an environmental presentation as part of our Christian education for the fall. But to date, we've been not meeting for the summer.
okay, moving on, Flat Creek Crossing, June.
All right, Patty Pyle is the practical head of Flat Creek Crossing in Montreat, and she has again submitted a written report. The Flat Creek Crossing team has been busy this summer. Zoom meetings were held to organize special events. Many thanks to Gail and George Sawyer, who made their vehicle available for the July 4th parade. We had fun decorating and participating, all with the goal of encouraging participation in the fundraiser kickoff. Extra special thanks to Grant Weiss, our young friend, who drove his electric wheelchair in front of our parade float. And had a cheering section. He had 2 cheering sections along the way, which was pretty remarkable. A display table at Walk Up and at Moorfield gave additional publicity opportunities. July 5th fundraiser kickoff was successful. Approximately 100 people attended. 56 names and emails were collected. The Pelican snow cone truck was not as popular as expected, but we were happy to provide an incentive for families to bring their children. Thanks to the town for helping us arrange traffic control coverage, and to the mayor and other council members and members of this committee for being there. Follow-up emails to all those who registered on July 5th were sent. We hope to receive donations as a result, and we have received one exactly from the follow-up as a result. At the cottagers meeting on July 22nd, thanks to Jim Williamson, more art cards and prints were sold. Work days were scheduled in July. More ivy and poison ivy were removed. Plantings on the far side of the creek were accomplished, thanks to the hard work of George Sawyer and Eric Nichols. Work days are on hold till the weather cools. April Carter will advise when we can resume. We should receive news of the first grant application in September from the state of North Carolina Environmental Enhancement Grants. More grant applications will be pursued when those windows open in spring. The committee looks forward to working with the new town manager on many new grant applications. Jeff Hudson is providing invaluable help to keep the website updated. Have you all visited the website? It's montreatlandcare.org, and you really ought to take a look at it. It's looking very nice, and we're trying to keep it updated, and we are paying to do that. Let's see. Landcare committee members are encouraged to consider making donations and spread news of the project to friends, family, and business contacts. The money raised will be important proof of community support needed for grants. Heavy equipment can be brought in as soon as $50,000 is raised. Fall is an important time. We will be working around sensitive life cycle timeframes for trout and other aquatic life. Checks should be made out to Town of Montreat with Flat Creek Crossing on the memo line, sent to Montreat Landcare, P.O. Box 92, Montreat 28757. Thank you letters, pledge forms, and procedures for making deposits are all in place. Many thanks to Jean Morris for setting up these protocols and handling what we hope will be a lot of mail coming in. Also, thanks to Angie Murphy and Rachel Eddings as we continue to work together on all the money handling details. We welcome new partners, Adam Combs of Waypoint Adventures in Black Mountain and Jeremy Murphy of ACI Consulting Architects to our partner list. And we've heard about Adam before. He was the student of Dottie. Okay, Jeremy Murphy is new to us. He's an architect specializing in accessibility, and he's done outdoor work in the past. So I think he'll be invaluable consultation. The next fundraiser is planned as a benefit concert in October during the Holy Shift Conference, October 9th to 12th. We await news on venue and musicians and are hopeful about coordinating this with the conference center. So I have a little bit of treasurer report that I could add to that. This month's bill for website updates, which included adding a project page for Bearwise, but otherwise was entirely devoted to updates for Flat Creek Crossing and debugging and so forth, comes to $600, which is 10 hours. And I don't think that 10 hours is at all unreasonable considering what needed to be done on the website. And $60 an hour is a great bargain price for someone with the skills of Jeff Hudson. But we are facing the need to actually update the entire website. And we're probably in need of about $5,000 to do that. And I'm going to go back through what we have collected from other sources and what we have in our budget and see how close we can get to that with money that we have. And we'll talk to the Flat Creek Crossing people about how much of Flat Creek Crossing's money might go into website redesign now, as opposed to these kind of maintenance steps that it's gone into so far. But it's a need that's becoming more apparent every time Jeff does an update. And then I can't get to it from my iPad or my phone, or sometimes my computer. He can and I can't, and he finds something else that needs updating. The website does need attention. And websites get that way. It is based on WordPress, and there are a number of other so-called plugins that work with it. I think WordPress is up to date, but many of the plugins also need to be updated or simply replaced with something more current. And it sounds like you know more about that than I do. Perhaps we could chat. I've exceeded my knowledge with what I've said right now, I think. Okay, I think that's the end. Well, it's almost the end of the report. Some of you may remember the absolutely gorgeous watercolor original renderings that April Carter put together for the fundraising event of the Welcome Center. That was earlier, and so forth. And when we first opened those up and looked at them, we all said, oh, the first $100,000 donor gets to keep one of these. They are that beautiful. Those, she did them for a very reasonable price. And that we have also been billed for this time. So Flat Creek Crossing has a net now of about $10,000 or $10,100 still available. And I can do a fuller report on that in the next meeting, or I might even get something prepared that I can put out as minutes before then. But I have a little more messing around in the books to do. I think that's the end of the report.
Okay, Jean, thank you. Good report. That was a wonderful occasion. Y'all, some of y'all were there. It was great. It was fun. Okay, I'm next. Bearwise. Oh, I've got lots of bears, lots of activity everywhere, but mostly they're after the trash or bird feeders. The town is, like Kitty said, is really cracking down on unsecured and bear it's just trash containers. It's not just the trash, it's the bear containers, like you said, Kitty, that just peel back the corner and go after it. But most of us are really, I think, are living under the threat of the fear of a bear human encounter. There are too many of them and too many of us right now with this. So I've contacted the bear watchers in the neighborhoods, and they are, and I've asked them to remind their neighbors of the bear alerts and how to manage those, so that we can hopefully keep us safer. And I've also asked them to report to me if there are any trash containers that have been broken into and there's trash all over everywhere, so that I can report that to Angie instead of having 35 people call Angie and say, oh, we got trash on the road. So that will hopefully cut down on Angie's work. We did have a presence in the 4th of July parade. Actually, we led the parade. Did y'all notice? The bear had the bear was. Of course, I can't find the sign, so that's the issue that we have to face later. I can't find the man that had the sign on. Okay, good news is that we have received our community bear license. So these are going to be going up, certainly at the front gate, and all over down, maybe around Lake Susan. I don't think the town has quite decided yet where they're going to put them. But yeah, we can be proud that we've done this. Okay, I think that's all I've got. Now moving on, tree board not here, firewise not here. Community wildlife habitat. Bill Seaman, his report's going to be attached to the minutes. But in essence, he's ready to send out some electronic messages to the 56 people in Montreux who have wildlife habitat backyard signs. He wants to use the Landcare email address and then some guidance on the actual sending. So I guess we probably need to take a vote on that. Jane, can he use that? Is it legal for him to use that?
It would be. We have been unable to track down so far. I have been unable to track down so far who actually holds that account. And it could be the town of Montreat.
Doesn't Martha Campbell have a part in this somewhere?
Yes, but Martha Campbell is receiving the email on that account, but she's not the one who set it up or paid for it. So if there, I think there may be a charge for it, and it may be appearing in the town's bill. In theory, we should be able to use that email. We have to know whose email it really is. And we'd have to add another, once you own an email account, you can add, I forget what they call it, but additional email addresses to that account. Say what? Yes, aliases. We need to create an alias, but the holder of the account is who needs to do that. And we're not sure who that is yet. But I will try to pursue that soon.
So Bill can't use the email address because
we don't know whose email address it is. We don't know who is able to create the alias for it.
okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I will get that back to him then. And as far as asking for help on how to do that, wouldn't he just get the emails of everybody he wanted to send it to and send out a blast? Is
Yeah.
that what you do?
He doesn't want to do it from his own email address, though. He would prefer that it be from montreatlandcare.com.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any new business? All right. The next meeting is September the 6th, 2023. Does anybody object to having the meeting adjourned?
I would like to add one request.
Okay.
I have several copies of a pledge form that we created for Flat Creek Crossing. If anyone would like to have one, please see me. I'd be delighted to hand out some of those.
All right. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.
And I did hear that up there, do go in a small